In this wasteland, I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead. A man reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
So I finally got to see Mad Max.
Yes.
And I had heard so much about it from so many people, including you, like how good it was. Mm-hmm. The first, like, sometime in the first half of the movie, I just, like, I swear to you, I started crying a little bit just because, like, what I was seeing was so awesome.
Right.
Like, when they drive into that cloud of, like, dust and stuff,
Dude,
I just was like...
was fucking awesome.
I just was like
I
can't.
I was watching the movie, and I was sitting there like, okay, I'm waiting for this to be what people say. Because I had only just seen Road Warrior, like, the day before, and it was my first Mad Max experience ever. And I just didn't have any idea what I was doing. I had no idea, like... Don't know anything about Mad Max. I don't know anything about any of this. And so I'm waiting for this movie to, like, be what it's supposed to be. And once they got to the storm, I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
And then that fucking guitar guy.
See, everybody was saying, like, oh, the guitar guy's the best. He was only in, like, 3 scenes for, like, less than 5 seconds.
Right.
That's the thing that stands out to people. That almost made me mad.
That's the thing, like, I didn't understand it either. I kept hearing that the guitar guy's the best, and I'm watching the movie like, oh, there he is, there he goes. What was so awesome about that?
Yep.
And then it happened a couple more times, but by the end of the movie, I was like, here he comes, dude, look how so fucking stupid he is, this is awesome.
That's so weird, though. He didn't do anything.
No, he just was so impossibly ridiculous. Like, these people are on their way to go fight and kill and blow shit up, and they have dedicated this giant monster truck full of speakers for this one guy to just shred a guitar as the theme to their charge everywhere they go. Like, that is
right.
Silly. It is silly in the best way. And that's, like,
yes,
once I figured out, like, I'm not waiting for him to do anything, I just have to appreciate his existence, it became really great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought it was cool. I just, like... Man, the whole movie though was like it is everything that everyone was telling me that it was. Like, it was so uniquely, like, it feels like an old movie, but it also feels like a modern movie. You know, like, it just absolutely, like, the car crashes when the cars crash and, like, pieces fly all over, and you honestly can't tell what was a practical thing and what wasn't a practical thing. Like,
right.
And I kept having people tell me, though, too, that, though, like, the guys, they're like, oh, man, wait till you see the guys on the poles. Like, the guys on the poles. Well, I think that the guys on the poles was, like, that's just a cool idea, but it didn't blow my mind. It was I was like, that's a really neat way of being a pain in the ass as far as an enemy is concerned. Yeah. Well, and see, and I had not seen a full trailer for this movie, even still when I went to see it, and everyone was telling me about these guys on the poles, So when in my brain, what I thought it was that they were going to be driving down this road, and there was just going to be, like, trees almost on the side of the road, but they weren't trees. They were just, like, these long, thin poles that guys would climb up to the top and slowly sway them back and forth, but they would be these huge things that were attached to the ground. Not just this rotating lever on a car. You know, I thought, to me, they were very underwhelming because everyone had said how cool they were. So that when they actually got to that point in the movie, I was kind of like, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I thought that the poles were cool, but it's not something of the things in the movie. I wouldn't pick the poles out and tell somebody how cool that thing was.
Absolutely. Yep. That was what I thought too. But that was like one of the things that Graham was like, he couldn't get over. Like, he just thought the poles were so cool.
They are cool, but they're not that cool.
I agree. I agree that they're definitely cool. And but overall, I would say, like, the movie as a whole is so impressive that I felt like those kind of, like, didn't live up to the hype that I had heard before I saw the movies.
Right. And I tell you what, I thought that the green place was fucking awesome. So, like, when they went through in those weird ostriches and how it was all just really spooky looking, and
how they showed it for like 15 seconds.
Yeah, kind of seemed like a Birthday Massacre album or something.
Yep, totally. I was like, man, this is really creepy. Like, this is really weird. Like, they didn't explain why the dudes were walking on stilts or anything, or if you were even supposed to think of them as dudes, or if it was just...
Yeah, it was just weird shit, and it was completely unexplained, and I thought that was one thing I really liked about the movie, too, is like, it's making no attempt to explain any of this. This just exists, which
exactly.
was cool.
And that, to me, is what made it kind of feel like cheesy 80s. Like, it felt like it was like, you know, some crazy Conan the Barbarian thing or something, where it's just like something that has no meaning or whatsoever happens. But at the same time, it was clearly this huge budget thing that was just awesome. And so, like, man, I always talk about how I really hope that, like, the Black Keys albums, like, really influence the direction music goes. Like, I really hope that a bunch of movies take cues from this, and that they start making more movies like this. You know?
Well, it's so much more difficult with movies, I think, because I don't know, certain, like, very, very rarely does mimicry work well in film the way that it does in music.
No, I agree, and I'm not necessarily saying that, like, I want every movie from now on to be shot in the desert.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's really, I feel like, you know, individual directors all have their specific styles, and you can give them different screenplays and different, you know, topics and context and actors and all that stuff, but it's still, like, David Fincher will always make David Fincher movies, and they will always feel like David Fincher movies, and they will always look like David Fincher movies, regardless of what they're about. I just don't know how, like, if I were to say, you know, for using him as an example, because he has such an extreme and obvious kind of style to the movies that he makes, I don't know how I could imagine he would try to put something like Mad Max together and actually have it, you know, work.
Okay, maybe in that case, what I should say then is I hope that George Miller, or whoever, I think this guy's name was George Miller, right?
I think that's right, yeah.
Well, I hope that he makes a bunch more movies then, in that case.
I think he will. I mean, it's one thing that I thought was really interesting, because I had just seen The Road Warrior the night before, which was 1981.
Right.
And same director for that and this. And I don't, like, I know a little bit about how movies are made, but I don't understand the very detailed intricacies of movie making, especially how it applies to, you know, the last 30 years, or how it has changed since then either. So something that I thought was really interesting was how much it was just like Road Warrior, but it still managed to look like visually and like shot construction and everything, how much it still managed to look like a modern movie. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what keeps a new movie from looking like an old movie, outside of, like, obviously, like, film quality and special effects quality.
Right.
But, like, even with practical effects and stunts and stuff, like, you'll watch old movies and you'll see, you know, all of the different kind of camera tricks that they have to do to make a stunt look like it worked out in a certain way. And you just kind of have to use inference for the rest of it. And then you watch a new movie, and it's a practical effect with the same kind of stunts, but then you've got a continuous shot pulled back to show everything that happens, all just in one big motion. And it's like, is it a progression of technology in, like, stunt equipment, like with wiring and, like, choreography and things like that? Like, I would love to know all of the differences there.
It just is weird because, like, just intrinsically, like, there was just something to this that to me felt like it was made by an older dude, like a guy that was an old school director. Like, it felt older. There were just parts of it that just to me, like, the atmosphere of the movie was not something that I would think that they would do now. Like, having a torso that sits there with no arms or legs be like, you know, or like people just with limbs and stuff cut off and just like... Because another thing I kept hearing was that the movie is so brutal and that it's so unrelenting and showing you, like, the story unfold and stuff. And so I was gonna go see it, and I was gonna take my mom to go see it, and I was like, no, I can't go see that. There's gonna be a horrible language and blood flying everywhere, and there was neither of those things.
That's true
at all. So part of me was kind of like I totally understand. That to me is one of the coolest things of it. Like, I guess, like, it felt so mature and it felt so. Like, you know how you watch something like The Goonies and they say words that you know would never be allowed in a PG movie that's made today? Mm-hmm. You know? Or I saw MASH the other day for the first time. The movie MASH.
That's funny because it was a show first, right?
I know the show, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Right, but the show is based off of the movie. But But anyway, I saw the movie the other day for the first time, and that movie is rated PG, and they say in the movie.
Which one, MASH?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's how Monty Python is also, and I think that's because I don't know if I've got my dates right on this, but I think that there was no PG-13 until like 1975. And so
that's probably right.
And so it went from PG to R, and I think that you changed your demographics substantially when you went from PG to R. And so things fit into PGs where it's just like PG now, you won't even find, like, I think you get an automatic PG rating for something being live action. Like like the only thing that you'll get is G is cartoon and animation.
Right, absolutely. Well, but that's what I'm saying, like, watching this movie and having there be no swear words and no like blood squirting out in the, I mean, there are a few violent things, you know, but like even when people get run over by trucks and stuff, like they don't show their head, you know, splattering into 1,000 pieces.
That's true.
But the fact that it's R though, and it just feels so visceral and it feels so real and it feels so.
And it's interesting because that's actually a really good point in the perspective of what you were saying about how it feels old, and it's like there's all of this inference of death like they used to do, especially Hitchcock was fantastic at that, where you just, you know, things happen and you never see much happen, but it's filmed in a way that makes you know what's happened, and there's a lot of inference going on, and that's something that they used to do obviously in the old times because you couldn't show people dying and it was not easy to do that.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think is so special about this movie. And when people say that it feels like an older movie, I think that's one of the things that they're talking about, is just the way that it almost feels like they're getting away with something, even though it is all rated R. You know, it's exciting. Like it absolutely, like, this is probably one of the only cases where I heard nothing but good things about this movie from every single person that I know, and I went and saw it, and it absolutely was even better than I thought it was going to be. Yeah,
kind of. I sort of agree. Like
I said, it literally made me cry. It literally made me cry, and I wasn't sad.
Right.
It was just so freaking beautiful. Like, what I was looking at was so incredible and so unbelievable that I got emotional. I mean, it's awesome. Like, I don't know if I've only ever, I think, seen maybe one other movie that did that to me.
I've seen that happens to me sometimes. I don't remember, like probably Gravity was the most recent, but I think that is an interesting point, an excellent point too, because it's, you'll a movie will come out and you'll hear, it was this good, it wasn't this good, and then you'll have to like weigh your sources, and then, but there's a fine line once everybody starts telling you it's good, and then once everybody that you know tells you how awesome something is, and then you hear it from people you don't know and from not people at all. Like, just the internet says this. And it's like, it's in the air. Every single person agrees that this thing is awesome. Then it becomes a matter of, it went from this could really be good, but I could also still be disappointed, versus this is something that is kind of a benchmark for the year, for the last 5 years. And it has to be something you that will not disappoint you.
Absolutely. And I feel like this absolutely lives up to that.
I think so too, because it's just, and that's another thing too, is like, it's not a movie that should have been good necessarily. It's not a movie that would have been good no matter what. Like,
exactly,
this had every single possible reason to be a crappy movie, because it's shallow, it's an action movie, and it's wildly stylized and
made by a guy that hasn't made a movie in 30 years.
Right. And a perfect example of this is The Spirit. That movie, came out hot on the heels of Sin City because Frank Miller got confused and thought that he was doing more directing than Robert Rodriguez, and so he went out and made The Spirit, and it was garbage. It was street trash. And and that was just one of those movies where all of the ingredients basically the same as here in Mad Max, where you have not much going on, and so much of it is being driven by style. And it could so easily have not been any good. And it was fantastic, and that's great. And I think that is another piece of why, like, when everybody tells you how good it is, and it's a movie that has no real business being as good as everyone says, it's like, this is really something else.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, too, that, And it's interesting because when you said that it had no right to be as good as it is, that's exactly what I was talking about when I was talking about that Alabama Shakes album that came out. Like, what they should have made an album that sounded like you would have imagined it sounding. But instead, they took all these production risks on it and made the album sound unique and odd, and it sounds a specific way, and they really had no right doing that. They could have made the most ridiculously cheesy, poppy, like, straightforward album ever, and because it was so highly anticipated, it would have been fine. People would have bought it, all over the place. But because they went and took that extra step, people that don't really care about the Alabama Shakes, like myself, really can get into it even more, and it feels like something special. And that's exactly what this did. Like, it has no reason to be as good as it is. It just feels like the stars aligned, and like every single person that was working on it did their job correctly. The cars, like the sets and stuff are great, but like the cars are like the characters of the movie, and like it's incredible. Like
the detail on so much of that, like the
all
way
the
that
stuff.
they built the cars and
out of other cars and pieces of things, and oh man.
Yeah, there was one scene that I looked at where it was just, or I watched it and I looked at it and I was like, this is a car with this crazy seat on top of it or whatever it was. But then you look at all of the pieces that went into building this piece, and it's like, there are like 1,000 pieces here making this thing that is so complicated. It's such a simple thing built in such a complicated way that you forget about the complexity of it. It's not a seat built from 1,500 different car parts. It's just a chair. But then you have to like look at it and notice that this is incredible how intricate all of these things are. There's all these spikes, and now we've got all of these different materials put together in a way that they do this action that has nothing to do with any of them on their own. And it's just wild engineering, and it's so complicated in it to the point where you stop noticing the complexity.
Yeah.
It's like if you look into a bowl, like into a big tub full of tiny screws, it's like, and you're trying to find one, it's like I only see screws. I don't see, all 35 different thread pitches or colors or materials that are here. You just see a bucket of screws.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too because like, well, yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the movie, when they're being chased or whatever, and they drive up with this thing, and then all of a sudden the back rotates, and you realize that it's a crane, like on the back, like it's one of the rotating with an arm. Digger. I don't know what you even call them. Some sort of a digger, like dirt digger or something. But it was just like on the swivel part was on the back of a like semi trailer, but it didn't look like that. Like it was almost camouflaged. And then when it rotates, I was like. And that was just like awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Very cool.
I did kind of think I found myself kind of thinking for a second, like, I kind of wish the music was a little bit more industrial and less orchestral.
I think I agree with that. Like, you've got this guy whose name is Junkie XL, so you would think that he is, predominantly well-versed in electronic music.
Right.
And you've got a super industrial wasteland. And the orchestral score was good, but I kind of wish it had been a little more unique. I agree with that.
Yeah, see, that was what I thought too. But then the farther it got into the movie, there's one point when the guy that's sort of the bad guy that then turns into the good guy, the bald guy that sprays himself in the face with the paint. How freaking awesome is that idea? Spraying your mouth with spray paint right before you die to show that you knew you were going to die and like are committing suicide in the name of your Lord or whatever.
Exactly.
It's crazy. That's so awesome. Like, do they talk about that in any of the older movies?
No, that's brand new to this.
That's something they made just for this.
I might be wrong about that. I've only seen Road Warrior, but they had nothing like that happen in Road Warrior.
Yeah. See, I have not seen any of the others. I have not seen any of the other movies at all. But that to me was awesome. But there was a scene in the movie where that guy, like, he tries like a bunch of times to sabotage him, and then he doesn't. And then when they start to drive away, and he kind of runs up, and then he sabotages the back car, so Max has to go back there, and then he climbs out the front. And like there's a moment where he's like standing on the top of the thing, like kind of walking through, and it's like kind of slow, and the music is very beautiful. Like it feels like he's going to his death or something, and that's not what's happening in the scene at all. He's just kind of like crawling along the top of this trailer to then jump down and try to like, capture the lady for the guy, because at that point he's still a bad guy.
Yeah.
And like, and while that was happening, I was like, I kind of get it now. Like I kind of understand like that music doesn't really go there, but the fact that it's there and that it is that music, it makes the whole thing more powerful and super interesting because it's almost juxtaposes itself over what you would think would be there. You know, a more menacing thing, but instead it was this beautiful string part.
And it's just like that scene when what's her face? What's her name?
Charlize Theron?
Yeah, what's her character's name?
Furiosa?
Yeah, Furiosa. She she realizes when they discover that the green place isn't a place anymore and that she has that like, little moment of sadness. Breakdown, whatever you want to call it. And that part is where I was really like, man, this score is huge right now. Like it was completely out of control there. That was the first point that I really noticed the music.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because I was, like I said, at first I was a little disappointed that it was not as like industrial as I thought it would be. But the farther the movie went on, I was kind of like, okay, I see. I get why they did this, and I think it's probably a good idea, good thing that they did it this way.
I think one thing that I was kind of hoping would wanting to happen that never really did is that every time the guitar guy showed up, he was playing his part, and it was always just under the score.
Yep.
And I feel like what I wish would have happened there is that every time that he showed up, he just was the score. And it would like
just a huge guitar.
Yeah,
riffing.
This huge just him shredding the whole time but that it would that it would also be like relative to his position in the shot.
Sure.
So if he's really close, you come in, you bring the camera way in on him, and that's just you've got this booming guitar shredding thing, and then the camera pulls over this way and it pans to the left and fades out real hard, but you don't have any other music happening. Like, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to hear what he was playing because it sounded pretty awesome.
Right, yeah. And that was another thing, too. Yeah, the guitar part actually was so low in the mix that there were parts where you when they were showing him that you couldn't even really hear the guitar. So, did you see any interesting trailers before the movie that you hadn't seen before?
I saw, I don't know, so many of the trailers I saw before I saw the movie were really passively seen. Like, I don't even know where I saw them. That's how passive it was. And I don't remember I remember one, like, how in the world can this be good? It looks like it was going to be silly or something. Like, I just didn't have any possible idea what to think. And I sat and fully watched the most recent trailer on YouTube, like, before I left the house to go see it. And I was like, okay, this could be... Because all I had seen before is like this one shot of a guy on a pole going across the center of a frame. And then it was cars and explosions the whole time. And I was like, well, I don't have any idea what to think about this. And before the night before I saw it, I didn't have any context for Mad Max whatsoever anyway.
Sure. Yeah, see, I somehow managed to miss all the trailers, and I kept having people tell me, oh, well, you've seen the trailer. It's like that. And I just would always go, oh, yeah, rather than saying, no, I haven't seen the trailer, just to avoid having to sit down and watch it right there. But I almost feel like I'm glad I didn't. Now, are you aware, I'm sure you are, but you're aware that the later this year, like one of the most anticipated video games coming out is the Mad Max video game?
I've heard some passive mentions of there being a game for it, and that it could very well be damn awesome.
Well, okay, so the kind of funny guys that I religiously watch every day now, Colin said that the company that's making the game, well, first of all, it's an open world game, so it's a big open world thing, and it has to do with like the cars and stuff. And from what I've seen, it looks like there could be moments of it that remind me a little bit of like sort of like Twisted Metal or Vigilante 8.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Driving around out in the and you can hit buttons and stuff and control weapons on your car and different things and mod your car, obviously. But Colin is really excited for it because of the studio that's doing it. Like, cool. I'm not sure what the last game they did was, but it was something that was like pretty big and important. And that I guess they've been working on this game for like 3 or 4 years.
Do you know the studio?
I don't know what the studio was. I'm sorry. I'm sure if I told you that you would know, but it was something that, but he the guys that I watch online, they're really excited for it. And so it'll be anxious. I'm anxious to see what happens with it, And
for sure, because when's the last time that a movie tie-in game was good?
Well, Batman. That's the thing that he was talking about in that conversation. He was saying, like, with the Batman games, which they're not necessarily movie tie-ins, but like the first one, Arkham Asylum, was made to simultaneously coincide with the Batman movie.
Yeah.
And that the studio, when they like commissioned it or whatever, they said, we're going to give you free reign to do what you want with it. You don't have to stick to the movie at all, but just realize that it's part of like the movie franchise. And then of course the video games got to be so popular and stuff, and like whatever, like
Yeah, they've long surpassed
they're their own thing
movie
now
series.
for sure. But at the same time, Colin was saying that hopefully that catapults other studios into doing things like that, because like there is a Jurassic Park game coming out as well, and I'm sure that's going to be awful. You know, I have no idea, but I'm
Yes.
pretty sure it will. Although I have no idea.
I think probably so.
Well, right, and I mean, do you think the movie's going to be any good?
Boy,
I know it's tough, right?
it is tough. It is really tough because it kind of like in so many different parts of the trailers, I'm seeing shots that are very, very clearly mimicked right from JP1. Like this is a nod to this shot from JP1, and so is this shot, and so is this sequence here, and it's like it's almost it's tough because it's like how often can you nod, a little homage to something before you're just copying it? Like if if you've got 50% of your movie composed of homage shots from a different movie, well, now you're just that means what you actually done is just not had to create
Sure.
Now you've had to manually create 50% of the shots for your movie.
Right.
So it's tough to draw that line. Categorically, like contextually, the movie, I don't know how I feel about trained raptors.
Right, or the fact that they genetically modified a dinosaur. Wasn't that the plot of Jurassic Park 3?
Maybe. I thought the plot of Jurassic Park 3 was that some kid managed to get lost on the island or on an island, and then these two parents were like, hey, take us to the movie or take us to the island. And this guy's like, no, I don't want to. And they're like, well, you're going to do it. And so they did. And it's like, oh, hey, this island has dinosaurs on it. Why didn't anybody tell us? Oh, we did. Oh, we weren't listening. We found our kid. Hooray, the end. Like that movie
is awful, right?
Yeah,
I get
it's
that.
it was just a lost kid movie on an island that also happened to have dinosaurs on it. Had nothing.
Right, but didn't they? I thought the main thing was though that they created, like, the dinosaurs had been on this island and they had crossbred and create this super dinosaur that, from what I remember, looks basically exactly like this, like shots I've seen of this new hybrid dinosaur thing. Which
I
to
haven't
me is
seen
like,
any of the hybrid dinosaur. I have nothing from that.
From looking at the trailer, I kind of get the impression that it's like a bigger T-Rex with like a fin thing on its back.
Okay.
Like a big fin, which is exactly what the dinosaur was in Jurassic Park 3 that was chasing them all over the place.
I don't remember there being a chase dinosaur. I remember they had the pterodactyls.
Right. And then I thought there was a water one too. There was like a water, like there was a big scene with a water dinosaur.
Boy, it's been a while since I watched JP3. I try to avoid it because it makes me upset. But
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I swear that they had some sort of like I thought the plot of that was that the dinosaurs had been left on the island and they had crossbred somehow, and that they had created this dinosaur that was killing the Tyrannosaurus Rexes.
in JP3?
Yeah, I swear.
I'm not going to say that you're wrong because I know so little of it. It just doesn't sound familiar at all.
Okay, maybe I'm mixing it up with other stuff. It entirely could be, for sure.
But do you think that we should record what we're actually here to do?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually just debating if we should. I could edit everything we just said now into like a little thing that we could release on YouTube, and we could call it our review / discussion of
the music room
Mad
reviews
Max.
something it has no business. Music room reviews a movie.
Yeah, review / discussion of Mad Max.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!